all signs point to this, as an MLB insider has dropped what is probably the biggest update as to the plans for the Los Angeles Dodgers going into the winter meetings. We're going to be breaking it down, going over this report, as two names have been specified as option A and option B for this Dodgers team. We're going to be breaking it all down here in this video. Before we do jump into it, ladies and gentlemen, if you haven't already, be sure to hit the sub button. Join me here on the channel. We're covering everything Dodgers every single day, and we have a lot of stuff that is starting to heat up as winter meetings are underway. But let's jump straight into this. First of all, going over a quote from Bob Nightengale detailing, like I said, that option A and option B as to what the Dodgers can and will do in this year's free agency. So starting off with this, Bob Nightengale saying the Dodgers will be thrown into every single rumor because of their massive payroll. And they do have $80 million coming off the books, but the reality is that they won't be involved in the bidding war for any of the biggest stars. Oh, they'll dip their toes for the water for Kyle Tucker, Cody Bellinger, and Edwin Diaz, but they would prefer to grab outfielder Harrison Bader and Robert Suarez. The only way they may consider making an expensive pickup is if they trade Teoscar Hernández, who is owed $26.5 million. Now, we've spoken about here on the channel the possibility of trading Teoscar, which really seems like an absolute no-go unless they know for a fact that they are going to be signing one of those big names. And that is something that they cannot guarantee. So keeping Teoscar Hernández on this roster makes the most sense at this point. Now, going into the options that they really do have, and specifically for this one, looking at the bullpen, it is Robert Suarez or Edwin Diaz. The price tag for both are pretty similar. However, Robert Suarez would be for shorter term, leaving them with more money to spend elsewhere over a quicker period of time, I guess is a good way of putting it. But Edwin Diaz, we know what we're getting out of him. Robert Suarez, you know what you're getting out of him as well. And it makes more sense for the Dodgers and this sense to go out and get the shorter term, arguably what would be better for the organization right now with monetary standpoint than some of the big names. A lot of people may not agree with that, but there are some things the Dodgers want to plan for. And as we've seen, Brandon Gomes, Andrew Freeman, both speaking out that if there is a salary cap, they need to be prepared for that. So although that is something that you cannot really predict what will happen, they want to make sure that they're saving money for some of these big free agents to come over the next couple of years and not really lock themselves under one major banner of a lot of money with, I believe, what would be 13 players over $10 million. So the Dodgers are keeping very, very coy with what they're doing. They're making sure they know what the plan is going to be, but going over as well with a few more options, and this one from an Athletic MLB source, that the Dodgers are looking to stick with shorter-term frameworks with many of the free agents they are pursuing. While this would be a benefit for the team for several contracts that will only increase in value over the next decade, many of the top free agents are likely looking for longer-term deals, which offer more financial security. So, like I said, having these big moves be made, we want to see it. We want to see this team go for a three-peat, but being vigilant on the monetary side of things seems to be the Dodgers' biggest priority for this offseason in specific, and I don't hate it, because when we look at how things are playing out, there are a very, very high amount of good free agents. There are some that are in the upper echelon that you would not really be able and willing to pay for a long period of time. Specifically, when you look at how this Dodgers roster is structured, salary-wise, but getting these shorter term, maybe higher price for shorter term, it gives them an option to be able to say, hey, if this don't work, we're going to change it. I feel like Tanner Scott had a major kind of impact on how this Dodgers free agency has gone thus far, while you're seeing some of these other teams in the MLB be ready to go, for next season already with a few big signings. Now, as when it comes for Robert Suarez, seeming like their biggest option. $20 million for 3 years when you're comparing that to an Edwin Diaz who would be 4 or 5 for the same salary. They want to get more out of it, and like we've shown before and like we saw in the last video for Robert Suarez, the stuff with him and Ohtani, that's in the past. That was, they made up at the All-Star game, and just looking at how it does play out right here, they were joking around, having fun with it. So if Ohtani wants him, that's an A-okay for the Dodgers to go ahead and do it. But when it comes down to the rest of it, there's going to be a lot of questions surrounding the position players, how things play out. And with Harrison Bader being an option that we've spoken about here on the channel as well, the Dodgers are really going for what would be an upper mid-tier type of player in free agency, at least when it comes to position players, if they do not remove one of their top players already in Teoscar Hernández. And the Dodgers have already kicked tires on this mindset of going for these types of players. And you look at this from Fabian Ardaya and Katie Woo. The Dodgers courted reliever Raisel Iglesias before he re-signed with the Braves on a 1-year deal. The Dodgers also struck it with closer Ryan Helsley, who signed a 2-year contract with the Orioles, although he wants to become a starter in most teams. Signed a 2-year deal with that Orioles team. Their most recent rejection came in the form of Devin Williams, who signed a 3-year pact with the Mets. The Dodgers are reportedly also interested in Padres closer Robert Suarez, with all signs pointing towards Los Angeles offering the dominant reliever a short-term deal with a higher AAV. So if we do go back to this and look at this $20 million market value over 3 years, this I think would be the maximum term. 3 years. Would not surprise me to see a 2-year upwards of perhaps $23 to $25 million, following that mindset of making sure that over this shorter term, they are going to get the names they want. Especially looking at this bullpen, they can afford to go with some of these older guys who have the experience, who bring a lot of firepower to this lineup with how young it is, and especially kind of molding these players into a homegrown elite bullpen. That's what it is going to take, getting some of these names and making moves further down the line. Now, you look at next year's free agency that we have right here. This is specifically for the bullpen. There are, once again, some big names that are thrown into the mix. You have a player option for Ryan Helsley, Aroldis Chapman, Taijuan Walker, Raisel Iglesias. A lot of names here that are very similar to what you're going to be looking at for the Dodgers this year. So, given that option of a short-term deal for what would be, in this case, Robert Suarez, they could do the same next year with a few more names that are on the market. And with how things are playing out over this time, I'm curious to see where the Dodgers do end up going from here in terms of making this lineup the way they want it to with a reasonable price tag over this winter. So after seeing that quote from Bob Nightengale that they may be out on some of the bigger names unless they are going to trade Teoscar Hernández, which would only create a bigger hole for this team, I ask you guys this question. What do you want the Dodgers to do? Are you okay with biting the bullet and going for these big names, maybe having to trade someone internally? Or do you want to see this Dodgers team go about making some smart moves by getting some of these not-so-hot commodities at a good price and having this team, this staff, build the trust for those players? Curious to see what you guys think here in the comments below, but that is all I have here in this video. If you did enjoy, give it a like, hit the sub button as well. I'm signing out, though. Thank you for watching. Hope you have a great day. See you later.